Hi, this is Mitch Mitchell. So today I'm going to talk about leadership training and, well, basically changing your life, changing your commitment, changing all kinds of different things in your life or in the lives of others. And I'm going to start off by saying that, I read a lot of stuff and I retain a lot of it, although I don't always remember the names of the people who write the stuff and whatever. I don't know why. I just can't ever remember all the names. So in this particular instance, there was this interview that I watched from this guy who's a professor at some college in California, and he was saying that leadership training is a scam, that it's bogus, that it doesn't work, and that he doesn't know why people do it. The strangest thing is, he did leadership training. He was a teacher in business and education and leadership. And so he did leadership training. So it sounded like the stupidest thing I'd ever heard, but his point was that the reason it doesn't work, at least in his opinion, is because it's up to upper management to also participate in the process, which they rarely do. They will often send other people to get leadership training, but they don't change themselves. Therefore, the culture of an organization doesn't change. And whereas I understand that part of it, I think it was still stupid because good leadership does not necessarily depend on the overall culture. It really doesn't. Yes, it would be nice if a CEO and the CFO and all the other vice presidents, whatever you call themselves, actually sat down with their directors and managers and all the other people and participated in leadership training. But the truth of the matter is that you don't necessarily need those people. You know what? If you decide that you want to be a good leader and that you want to change your own self, then you can change your own self. You can be a good leader. So I thought that was kind of stupid, and it irked me for whatever reason that he said that. And I'm one of those people who obviously I believe in leadership training. Otherwise, I wouldn't be promoting it. I wouldn't ever do it, because why do something that you don't believe in? But you have some of these people who believe that change is supposed to be quick. And I'm going to give you an example. I wrote about it in a blog post earlier today. Some years ago, I got a phone call and I was requested to put in a proposal at this particular hospital because they wanted to try to improve the relationship between their hospital and the local physicians. There's a lot of interaction, believe it or not, between physicians who send patients to hospitals in some communities to get lab work and get x-rays and all these other kinds of things. And sometimes the information flow doesn't work all that well. Either the physicians don't send over all the information that they need, or the hospitals don't send back all the information that's needed. So he recognized that they had an issue. He called me. So I prepared this summary, this idea of how I felt it could go. I paid my own money to drive there, and I stayed overnight in a hotel that I paid for, and I paid for my own meals, which I should have charged them for that at least. But I didn't charge for any of that. I paid for my mileage because it wasn't close. So the next day, I go in and I meet this guy. And for about 90 minutes, I'm telling him my plan. I'm explaining why all this stuff has to happen. And I detail it all. I gave some ideas on some things that we would do or that I thought could be done. And he basically sat there doing this. Yes, exactly. I'm for that. Yes, I fully agree with you. Until I said, okay, and the process was going to take about 3 months. And he stared at me and he said, 3 months? We don't have 3 months. This has to be done in 2 weeks. And I looked at him, and immediately I had two thoughts. The first thought was, okay, I've just blown this presentation because I didn't ask him what he was looking for. But the second thought was, this guy's a moron, because you can't change culture in 2 weeks. You just can't. I mean, my goodness, they had a failing relationship with the physicians. That didn't happen in 2 weeks. That had happened over time. You really think that someone can come in and in 2 weeks change an entire culture, an entire relationship with a group, with your own group? Are you serious? Needless to say, I never heard from that guy again. I certainly tried. I did call a couple of times, but I never heard from him again because we had incompatible beliefs in how this thing should work. However, my thought was, hey, you know what? You called me looking for help. I gave you a suggestion. You didn't like it. But how do you just throw it out by thinking you were going to solve something in 2 weeks? I bet you couldn't have put something together and solved it in 2 weeks. Still, it's this thing where, you have to look at change and leadership and learning. And basically, if you're looking for all of those kinds of things, you have to realize it's going to take basically two things. There's a lot of, I'll say, diversity in how these things apply or manifest themselves, but really it takes two things. The first thing it takes is a commitment to want to change. For instance, I needed to make a commitment last summer that I was going to get my health under control. Because I'm diabetic, my numbers were always way out of whack. I was having just way too many highs, and then suddenly I started having some lows based on environment and a couple of things, and I needed to get a handle on that. So I made a commitment, and things didn't change overnight, but by making the commitment I did, pretty much within a month, things started to change. But I made a serious commitment. The second thing is time. It took me a full month before I gained some kind of control over what was going on. Now, I had a plan, and the plan actually worked, but if the plan hadn't worked, it would have taken me a lot longer than that to get this thing done. So, sometimes it does take time. You can't change the entire culture of a company within a couple of weeks. This is one of those things that Zappos has been dealing with when they're trying to change from traditional management structure to something called a holacracy, which I still don't fully understand. I'll admit that. I admitted that in the interview that I did with Hassan Sorrells a few weeks ago. I don't fully understand it, even though I've read about it. The thing is that they put it into play, and within a few months, they were already basically saying, okay, you know what, some of our employees aren't adapting to this well, so they were giving them packages that allow them to leave rather than to modify or do anything else. They recognize that, this is kind of different. This is a major change. This is just, something that we can't just implement and it's going to go, because it's a major change. This wasn't a tweak. This was a major change. So things like that, they take time. And I could probably tell you with some reality that I could probably change someone's life in one session. I can do that. I have done that. But you change a life only a little bit. You don't make any big changes. Now, some people only look for one thing. And if they're looking for that little change and you give it to them, fine and dandy. But if you're looking to totally change your belief pattern, totally change your corporate structure, totally change some of your behaviors and patterns, you know what? All that mess takes time. It just takes time. That's just how life is. So I asked, the question here, what kind of commitments do you have or do you want to make? And are you willing to put the time into it? Not only the structure, not only the commitment, but the time. Like I said, everything doesn't change immediately. I started walking a lot, which has gotten my glucose under control. But initially, I had to start basically 4,000 or 5,000 steps and work my way up to now where I make sure I walk at least 5 miles every day. Some days I actually make 10 to 15 miles. Those are some rough days. But I can do that now. I had to work my way there. So what are you willing to commit to? Can you commit to it? If you're trying to change, an overall culture, with a lot of people all at once, are you willing to give the commitment and the time? Because you know what? That's what it takes. Anyway, give me your thoughts on this. My name is Mitch Mitchell. I hope to hear from you. Y'all take care.